My family runs an antique shop. Turns out we'd been part of a switched at birth situation with the Hamiltons, the giants of the antique world. The day they came to take the real daughter home, I assumed the one they de-raised wouldn't show up. But she did. She arrived clutching her copy of the complete guide to antique appraisal. I, on the other hand, just stuffed my hands in my pockets and got in the car. My CEO brother, who'd come to pick me up, glanced over. "Where's your luggage?" I answered slowly, "Too lazy to pack it." "Isn't it enough that you're getting me?" My CEO brother was speechless. I got in, buckled myself up, found a comfortable position, and leaned back. I didn't move a muscle. The look Alex gave me was complicated, like he was observing some kind of abstract art piece. Oh right. Alex is my long-lost biological brother, the president of an antique auction house. And I'm the real daughter who was taken home by the wrong family. My attitude, like I was on a casual field trip, left Alex silent for a long moment. When he finally spoke, he asked, "Don't you need to say goodbye to them?" "No, sis. My one and only sister, you're just gonna leave like that?" I'd barely started to answer when a whale cut me off. A human-shaped blur sprinted toward the car and started clawing at my hand through the window. "I can't bear to see you go. What will I do without you?" he cried, shaking my arm with all his might. I felt myself swaying back and forth like seaweed, my soul practically floating out of my mouth. "Yep, I'm gone," I said, closing my eyes peacefully. "If you need anything, you can reach me by Ouija board." Leo paused for a second, then started crying even louder. "Sis, I still don't know if that painting is real or fake." He was abruptly lifted to his feet, and the crying stopped. Charlotte stood there, holding a thick notebook and pushing up the glasses on her nose. A glint of steel seemed to flash behind the lenses. "Leo, right? Your parents told me you were in charge of looking after the 8 pieces of blue and white porcelain in the shop." Her serious, interrogative tone made Leo instinctively stand up straight, adopting the solemn attitude he'd use when facing his homeroom teacher in elementary school. "Why yes, that's right. What about it?" Charlotte flipped open her notebook with a swoosh, pulled a pen from her breast pocket, and started scribbling as she fired off questions. "What time do you check them each day? What are the environmental conditions for preservation? What are the temperature and humidity controls set to? Is there any abnormal wear and tear?" As the questions kept coming, Leo's mouth slowly fell open, and he looked completely stupefied. Alex, however, seemed to have expected this. He simply lifted his eyelids, watching impassively from the side. I gave Charlotte a surprised glance. From a wealthy socialite to the daughter of an antique shop owner, she didn't seem to feel the downgrade at all. She was adapting faster than I was. Charlotte met my gaze and gave me a polite nod. I smiled and pointed at the dumbstruck Leo. "Leo's really useful. Anything you need done, just tell him." Charlotte's eyes lit up. She thought for a moment, then said bluntly, "The Hamiltons. They're loaded." The Hamilton brother was speechless. The Yin family's younger brother was speechless. It was almost 10 by the time we got back to the Hamiltons' villa, well past my usual bedtime. My eyelids were fighting to stay open, and I could have fallen asleep standing up. But just as I walked in the door, a sickly sweet voice jolted me awake, nearly scaring the sleepiness away. "Alex, you're finally back. Ms. May, hurry and bring out that special soup I had you make." Alex must be exhausted after being on the road all day. He probably didn't even eat well. A girl in a beige silk dress came fluttering over, fussing around Alex with a worried frown. After a long spiel, her eyes finally landed on me. She covered her mouth in a fake gasp. "Oh my sis, I'm so sorry. I forgot all about you." She glanced at me timidly, then back at Alex. "Alex, is this Cora? Does this mean Charlotte really isn't coming back?" Alex's face was expressionless. "Where she wants to go is her business. From now on, Cora is your sister." He then turned to me. "This is Eva. My mother sponsors her. She's basically adopted now." Eva looked at me shyly, her expression anxious. "Cora, I didn't know you were coming today, so I didn't prepare anything for you. Why, you're not mad at me, are you?" I covered my mouth and yawned. My body was still standing there, but my soul had already checked out. "Are we done here? If you're done talking, I need to find a place to sleep." Alex pinched the bridge of his nose, a trace of exhaustion on his handsome face. She's tired from the trip. Take her to her room to rest. Eva bit her lip. But the room isn't ready yet. Alex lowered his hand, his brow furrowing slightly. What happened? Didn't I tell you to get it ready before I left? His stern gaze fell on Ms. May, the housekeeper standing nearby. Eva frantically explained, "It's not Ms. May's fault, it's mine. I thought, since my sister was coming back, I should give her my room. But I have too much stuff, and I couldn't finish packing in time." As she spoke, she looked like she was on the verge of tears. Alex's frown deepened. "There are plenty of empty rooms upstairs. Just prepare one of those. But my room has the best sunlight. My sister should have the best when she comes home. It's all my fault. I should have moved out sooner. I shouldn't have taken such a nice room in the first place. Why don't you let my sister sleep in my room tonight? I can sleep anywhere, really." "Sis," Eva wiped away a tear and looked bravely toward me. But her words died in her throat. Alex followed her gaze, and his own calm expression cracked a little. There I was, leaning against the wall with my eyes closed, having been fast asleep for quite some time. I slept until noon the next day, waking up in a completely unfamiliar room. I wasn't the least bit panicked. Once, when I was little, I went with my dad on a late-night run to acquire an antique. On the way back in the early morning, I was so tired I couldn't keep my eyes open. I saw a haystack on the side of the road, flopped down, and fell asleep. My dad was walking ahead, and suddenly turned around to find his very large daughter had vanished. It scared him half to death. My mom nagged him about that for over a month, and my little brother Leo was given a new chore because of it. His job was to watch me and keep me from just conking out wherever I felt like it. When I went downstairs, Alex and Eva were already at the dining table. Alex looked up and saw me, seemingly letting out a sigh of relief. He'd never seen anyone sleep like a corpse before. So dead to the world that you couldn't wake them no matter what. If he hadn't checked that I was still warm, he would have dragged me to the hospital. After I sat down, Alex asked a few concerned questions, and told me to make a list of anything I needed, so he could have his assistant buy it. Across the table, Eva bit her lip, looking like she was bursting to say something. Naturally, I wasn't going to be the one to start a conversation. Anyone who could get an extra word out of me was a true champion. Leo had practically gotten on his knees and begged me to talk to him before. Once the food was served, I picked at the dish in front of me, eating slowly. Alex glanced at me once, then again, and finally couldn't hold back. "There's so much food. Why are you only eating that one dish?" He paused, his tone softening a bit. "This is your home now. Don't be shy. Eat whatever you want." It was as if Eva had been waiting for this exact moment. She immediately started piling food into my bowl. "Cora, you've probably never had these things before. You should try them all. I know your family runs an antique shop." She let out a little ah, and covered her mouth, blinking at me. "Cora, I didn't mean it like that. I'm not looking down on people who run antique shops. It's just living in a place like that, you must have had a tough time. But now that you're back with the Hamiltons, things are different. Just tell me what you want to eat, and I'll make sure Ms. May makes it for you." She stared at me, waiting for a reaction. I just gave a flat "Oh, thanks." She waited a little longer, the smile on her face starting to stiffen. After a moment, I turned to Alex. "It's too far. It's tiring to lift my arm." Alex paused, taking a second to realize I was answering his earlier question. He looked torn between amusement and exasperation. "It's just lifting your arm." My phone started buzzing with a series of dings. Someone was messaging me repeatedly. Seeing that I was ignoring it, Alex gave me a nudge. "Aren't you going to look at that?" "Don't need to," I said without looking up, burying my head in my food. Eva's eyes flickered. She suddenly reached out, picked up my phone, and put on a concerned expression. "What if it's an emergency? Cora, even though you're back with the Hamiltons, you can't just cut off everyone you knew before." With that, she casually unlocked my phone, and a series of desperate cries instantly blasted through the screen and into our ears. "Sis, save me. For the love of God, save me. This woman is a demon. She stays up all night writing business plans for antique collections. She wrote 100 rules just for maintaining the blue and white porcelain. And she said she wants to expand our shop, open a new branch in 6 months, and go public in 3 years. She dragged me out of bed at 6 this morning to make me appraise every single antique, and then she made me study the characteristics of porcelain from different dynasties. I don't want to spend the rest of my life tied to antiques, and I especially don't want to be the heir to an antique empire, even if it goes public. The string of frantic cries echoed through the living room, painting a vivid picture of Leo's mental breakdown. An awkward silence fell over the room. Alex, sitting beside me, straightened his back. I'm finished eating. You two take your time. He stood up and strode out the door to work, looking as if he'd just been injected with a sudden shot of adrenaline. And Eva, who was usually full of drama, suddenly became quiet and well-behaved. I looked on thoughtfully. That girl I was swapped with, the former Hamilton heiress and now Leo's biological sister. She was that intimidating? Under Leo's relentless message bombardment, I came to understand just how much of a machine Charlotte was. Not only did she pull all-nighters to write business plans, but she also immediately started renovating the shop, implementing scientific management and targeted marketing. She was also completely willing to get her hands dirty, personally visiting my dad's old antique shop to help appraise items for 3 days before launching her overhaul. And you know what? The revamped shop was a huge step up, and business was much better than before. The only person suffering was Leo, who had become the sole soldier under Charlotte's command. But that wasn't even the scariest part. The scariest part was that the family's antique shop was just a side hustle for Charlotte. Her main job was as a project team leader at the Hamiltons auction house. It was a job she had applied for after turning 18, working her way up from an entry-level position without anyone knowing she was a Hamilton. Absolutely terrifying. I suddenly understood the sense of urgency Alex felt this morning. With a superstar sister like that around, constantly threatening his CEO throne, how could he ever relax? But now that he had me, his slacker sister, he probably didn't have to worry about that anymore. My CEO brother went to work to support the family, and I collapsed on the sofa to play on my phone. Eva finished her zither practice. I was still on the sofa. Eva finished her calligraphy lesson. I was still on the sofa. Eva was learning the art of tea with Ms. May. I rolled over. Cora, Eva walked over to me, holding a freshly brewed cup of tea, and hesitated. My fingers were tapping away on the screen, completely oblivious to the human-shaped object that had appeared next to me. A flash of annoyance crossed Eva's pretty face, and her voice suddenly rose. Cora, the Hamiltons may be wealthy, but we should still strive to better ourselves and not waste our lives. She paused, bit her lip, and continued. Perhaps the environment you grew up in was so poor that you've never seen truly exceptional people. Your perspective is limited, and you've gotten used to the aimless, dead-end lifestyle of the lower class. But she suddenly raised her voice, clenching her fists and staring at me angrily. That's no excuse to let yourself go. I looked up, confused. What is she talking about? Eva frowned, and was about to say more when a familiar voice came from my phone. She's always been like this. She can't get to the point, her logic is a mess, and her meaning is always vague. On the other end of the line, Charlotte paused before adding with a bit more emphasis, Eva, were all those years of English class a waste? How did your teachers even teach you? Or is it a problem with how you learn? How can a grown person not even know how to speak clearly? Charlotte? Eva's face paled, her body went rigid, and she stood up straight out of instinct. Charlotte's words seemed to hit her hard. She turned and walked away, looking utterly dejected. Over the phone, Charlotte thanked me. The software you made is great. Leo was right, you're really good at this. I gave a non-committal grunt. Before hanging up, Charlotte seemed to remember something and added a reminder. Mr. and Mrs. Hamilton, your parents, will be back in a few days. They are very different from your parents at the Yuns. You should probably be mentally prepared. Different how? Were they not human? I thought about it for 2 seconds, and then promptly forgot. My life at the Hamiltons was no different from my life at the Yuns. I just had a new place to lie down. But the big sofa in the Hamiltons' living room was truly amazing. For the past few days, aside from going upstairs to sleep, I'd barely left it. I actually wanted to sleep on the sofa, but Alex caught me in the act when he came down for a drink of water that night. He banished me back to my bedroom. He even personally escorted me to my door to make sure I wouldn't sneak back. These years at the Yuns, he looked like he wanted to say something, but in the end, he just pinched the bridge of his nose. Never mind. Just get some sleep. Over the past few days, Alex had gotten a thorough education on the difference between a slacker and a normal human being. I could hold the same position for hours without moving. The day I arrived, Alex gave me a credit card with a monthly allowance of $30,000. But that was a joke. In the days since, I hadn't even stepped out the front door, let alone spent any money. It was only because Alex was home today that he realized how carelessly I was living. It was the kind of existence where, if left unattended, I might accidentally let myself waste away. He really couldn't stand it anymore, so he started manually flipping me over, helping me correct my unhealthy lifestyle. One minute he was pulling me up to stretch my arms and legs. The next he was telling me I couldn't stare at a screen for too long and needed to look at something in the distance. He was driving me crazy, so I finally took the initiative to ask him why he was home. Alex paused, about to say something, when the sound of a car outside made him fall silent. Eva, who had been practicing the piano upstairs, came running down happily and threw herself into a woman's arms like a baby bird returning to its nest. "Mom, Dad, you're back. I missed you so much." The woman hugged her, calling her sweetheart, while the man next to her joined in. The three of them were a picture of affection, exchanging warm and loving words. Mrs. Hamilton excitedly recounted tales from their trip while showing off various gifts. Eva played her part perfectly, gasping with a wow, every now and then, giving an enthusiastic reaction. The mother and daughter were still chattering away at the dinner table, with Mr. Hamilton watching them with a smile. It was a perfectly harmonious scene. It made me and Alex feel completely out of place. Alex was particularly quiet today. He glanced at me, his eyes seeming to hold a hint of reassurance. I was like. Alex looked at Eva, who was happily showing off her gifts, and said in a low voice, "That's enough. We're eating now. You can take those gifts to your room and open them after dinner." Then he turned to Mrs. Hamilton, his tone softening slightly. "Mom, this is your first time meeting Cora. Shouldn't you give her a gift too?" Mrs. Hamilton let out a long, regretful "oh." She had just remembered me. She slapped her forehead, wanting to give me something, but Eva had already opened all the gifts she'd brought back. Not one to fuss, she simply took one from Eva's hands. "Cora, this is for you. Mommy forgot to buy you something, but I'll make it up to you next time." Mr. Hamilton added, "Just take what your mother is giving you. We didn't forget you on purpose, you just slipped our minds for a moment." I thought that if Charlotte were here, she would definitely say Mr. Hamilton also needed to retake his English classes. Or maybe he majored in talking in circles. I didn't take it. I don't want a gift someone else has already opened. My words instantly sent a chill through the dining room. Mrs. Hamilton looked a bit lost and said sadly, "Cora, are you mad at Mommy? I didn't do it on purpose. I'll make it up to you next time, okay?" Mr. Hamilton slammed his chopsticks on the table, his face sinking. "Where are your manners? Is that how you speak to your mother?" Alex massaged his temples, the frustration practically radiating off him. In the suffocating silence, Eva spoke up timidly. "I don't want the gifts anymore. Just give them all to my sister." Mrs. Hamilton's heart immediately went out to her. She took her hand and soothed her, "Sweetheart, you're the most considerate one. Tell Mommy what you like, and I'll buy it all for you." "Okay, thank you, Mommy." The mother and daughter spoke affectionately, and the storm seemed to pass just like that. After dinner, the family sat in the living area to relax and chat. Well, mainly Mr. and Mrs. Hamilton were chatting with Eva. Alex was on his laptop, dealing with work, while I reclaimed my designated spot on the sofa with my phone. Mrs. Hamilton glanced disapprovingly at me and Alex, feeling that we weren't as filial as Eva. She and Mr. Hamilton had been traveling for days, and upon their return, we didn't even bother to ask how they were or chat with them. I was like. Mr. Hamilton nodded in agreement with his wife. He even said that it was the same when Charlotte was around. She was cold and a workaholic, just like her brother, with no consideration for her parents. That's why they had adopted Eva. Now their biological daughter was back, and she wasn't fawning over them either, showing more affection to her phone than to them. Thank goodness they had adopted one. Otherwise, they would never get to enjoy the filial piety of their children. Hearing this, I was completely speechless. I looked over at Alex, who had a calm expression. Clearly, this was a familiar tune, and he was used to it. Somehow, the conversation drifted to my schooling. They asked me which school I went to. Eva was my age, a senior at the prestigious Silver Creek High. Just mentioning the school brought an unstoppable look of pride to her face, and Mrs. Hamilton looked equally pleased. My hands never stopped moving as I casually replied, "Oh, I'm a professional homebody." Mrs. Hamilton was still puzzling over which top school professional homebody was when Eva let out a pft of laughter. Seeing everyone look at her, she covered her mouth and apologized. "I'm sorry, Cora. I didn't mean to laugh. It's just the way you said you're a homebody instead of saying you dropped out of school." She looked like she was about to laugh again. Mrs. Hamilton's voice became sharp. "You're not in school?" "Nope," I replied without looking up. I couldn't be bothered with school. I've been self-taught since I was a kid and never attended a single class. At first, my parents, the Yuns, had hoped I could go to school like other kids. But after I made the teacher and the entire class cry on my very first day, that idea was permanently shelved. They were very worried about it. Later, it was Leo who said there was a wall between gods and mortals, and forcing a deity to hang out with regular people was uncomfortable for everyone involved. He got a beating for that. So, I've never been to school for a single day. But for the past 2 years, Principal Chen has been trying to persuade me to enroll at his school. Especially this year, with the SATs coming up, he hoped I could take them as an official student. By now, Mrs. Hamilton was discussing with her husband, her face grim, about getting me into Eva's school. The Hamilton family couldn't have an illiterate member who'd never even been to school. If word got out, they'd be a laughingstock, and she'd be too embarrassed to show her face. Even if they just got me into the school for show, it was better than me hiding at home playing games all day. Eva listened intently from the side, then said with a worried expression, "But Cora has never been to school. Will she be able to keep up?" Mrs. Hamilton looked hesitant, but Mr. Hamilton's face was stern. At her age, she can only be a senior. Does she want to be held back a year? After the SATs, we'll just throw her into some university abroad to at least get a degree. It'll be better for appearances. They made the decision right in front of me, without even thinking to ask for my opinion. Alex was silent the whole time. He frowned and looked at me, as if he wanted to say something, but ultimately didn't. Mr. Hamilton made the final call. I happen to have a bit of sway with Principal Chun at Silver Creek. It shouldn't be a problem to ask him to take on one more student. He finished, and seeing me still staring at my phone, a look of disgust and regret flashed in his eyes. If he had known, he would have been better off not acknowledging this daughter. Meanwhile, I was chatting with someone. I said yes. Old Chen. Said yes to what? Old Chen. To coming to Silver Creek? Old Chen. You're finally willing to get off your couch. Mrs. Hamilton took me to the school to handle my enrollment. Eva led the way, occasionally pointing out buildings and giving introductions. She was clearly very familiar with the place, speaking about it with great affection. I followed behind with my hands in my pockets, casually looking around. I matched what I saw with what Principal Chun had told me. Although it was my first time here, Principal Chun had praised the school from top to bottom countless times, trying to convince me to come. I even knew what the most popular dish in the cafeteria was. The vice principal received us personally. He apologized, explaining that Principal Chun was away on a business trip, but that everything he'd been asked to do was already taken care of. With that, he produced my student ID. Mrs. Hamilton was surprised, almost flattered. Although the Hamiltons were the richest family in the antique world, given Principal Chen's status, they couldn't really do anything if he chose not to give them face. But here was the vice principal receiving them, and from the sound of it, if Principal Chen hadn't been out of town, he might have met them himself. Mrs. Hamilton looked at Eva with satisfaction, feeling that this was partly due to Eva's own merit. It was because of Eva's excellence, combined with the Hamiltons' wealth, that the principal of Silver Creek was giving them special treatment. The paperwork was completed quickly. In the middle of it, the vice principal stepped out to take a call. When he returned, he said that Principal Chun was on his way back, and that if they weren't in a hurry, they could wait here. The principal wanted to meet them personally. Mrs. Hamilton was even more astonished. She eagerly agreed, taking Eva's hand with a broad smile. Our Eva has been so well taken care of by you all. As parents, we feel completely at ease in trusting her education to your school. The vice principal smiled and returned the compliment. Eva is a bright and generous student, with top grades in the school. You're very fortunate, Mrs. Hamilton. Hearing others praise her child, Mrs. Hamilton was overjoyed. They chatted enthusiastically, while I, the actual subject of the visit, was left on the sidelines. Seeing that the formalities were done, I took my student ID and walked out of the office. Just then my phone rang. I pulled it out and saw a new message. Ulchin, I'm half an hour out. Wait for me. Ulchin knew. I could almost picture a frantic old man in my head. I quickly shook the image away. What was the point of seeing an old man? The thought of starting a miserable life as a student was already making my food less tasty. At dinner that night, Mrs. Hamilton bragged about the school enrollment process. She made sure to emphasize that the principal had met with them personally, and had even praised Eva. Our Eva is just so outstanding. Cora really benefited from Eva's influence this time. Otherwise, things wouldn't have gone so smoothly. Mr. Hamilton nodded in satisfaction. Indeed. The school didn't even ask for anything in return. I imagine it's because Eva is a student there. Silver Creek has early admission spots for Yale every year. The application process should be starting around now, right? Eva said demurely, I've already applied. The results aren't out yet. The smile never left Mrs. Hamilton's face as she showered Eva with praise, saying she was sure to get the spot. They spoke as if the early admission was already in Eva's pocket. Alex, who had been quiet the whole time, suddenly spoke up. Getting into Yale through Silver Creek isn't that easy. Eva's grades are a little borderline, aren't they? Mrs. Hamilton's face immediately fell. What do you mean, borderline? Even Principal Chun had nothing but praise for her, she said displeased. I chewed on my chopsticks and looked up at Eva. Old man, I mean Principal Chun. Did he really accept me because of you? Eva's eyes flickered, but she maintained a poised and elegant smile. It was mainly because of the Hamilton family's reputation. After all, you are a Hamilton daughter, Cora. Mrs. Hamilton frowned at me, but it was still Eva who smoothed things over. Because she's a student at Silver Creek, it was easier for them to accept you. You should be thanking Eva, not questioning her like this. Seeing Mrs. Hamilton getting angry, Eva took her hand and gently soothed her. It's all right, Mom. Cora has never been to school, so she probably doesn't know how hard it is to get into Silver Creek. The rice in my bowl suddenly lost its flavor. I found myself missing the Yun's home. Even the crowing of the rooster in the backyard was more pleasant than this. After sorting out the school admission, Mr. and Mrs. Hamilton seemed to forget I existed. They were constantly taking Eva out shopping or to banquets. When Eva was praised at these events, Mrs. Hamilton was as happy as if she'd won the lottery. In contrast, her biological son Alex worked diligently like a horse every day, but rarely received a kind word from her. If her own son, who had been by her side for over 20 years, was treated like this, I, the daughter who had just been brought back into the fold, was even less of a priority. But I was perfectly fine with that. After several days of relentless pestering from Leo, I finally sent him an invitation code. It was for a little app one had made myself, which Principal Chun later promoted, making it popular within certain circles. Anyone who wanted to join not only had to pass an assessment, but also needed an internal invitation code. Leo had been dying to get into this app for a long time. He had finally passed the assessment a while back, and had been begging me for a code ever since. Oh well. If the rookie enjoys getting crushed, I might as well indulge him. That evening, Mrs. Hamilton was taking Eva to another banquet. When Eva saw me lying on the sofa, a thought flashed in her eyes. She tugged on her mother's arm and pleaded softly, Mom, can we take Cora with us? She's always cooped up at home. She'll get sick if she doesn't go out. Mrs. Hamilton glanced at me. Seeing me engrossed in my phone without even looking up, her eyebrows knitted together. Tonight is the Preston's party. All the important people will be there. Look at her, glued to her phone all day. What kind of impression will she make? She'll just embarrass the family. Mrs. Hamilton felt I wasn't presentable and naturally didn't want to take me out to socialize. To her, children, whether biological or adopted, were like beautiful clothes or expensive jewelry, things to be worn out to please herself and win the praise of others. They also had to be comfortable and fit perfectly to be considered acceptable. Otherwise, they were defective. Clearly, among the 4 children, Eva was the only one she considered qualified. So at Eva's insistence, Mrs. Hamilton reluctantly agreed to take me. When we arrived at the Prestons' house, Mrs. Hamilton initially kept me by her side. When someone asked who I was, she would explain my identity, and I would receive a few looks of ambiguous meaning. But unlike the sweet-talking Eva, I would just politely greet people and nothing more. Not a single extra word. Mrs. Hamilton's face grew darker and darker. Eventually, she left me behind, gave a few instructions, and walked off with Eva. Eva glanced back at me, a clear look of triumph in her eyes. TK. So boring. I grabbed some food, found a quiet corner, and pulled out my phone again. But the peace was quickly shattered. Hey, you're that real daughter the Hamiltons just got back, right? You're not all that. You can't even compare to Eva. A group of people approached me, the boy in the lead looking at me provocatively. I lifted my eyelids slightly, ignored them, and went back to my phone. The boy felt like he'd lost face. I'm talking to you. I heard your family used to run an antique shop. No wonder you have no manners. He sneered. You probably spent all your time with dusty old things. Now you're at a high-end event like this and don't even know what to do with yourself, right? That's why you're hiding here playing on your phone. Without looking up, I said, it's the same as being here. The boy didn't get it at first. It took a nudge from someone next to him to realize I'd just insulted him. He instantly became furious. The commotion drew attention. Before long, Mrs. Hamilton appeared with Eva. Seeing the situation, she frowned instinctively. Cora, didn't I tell you not to cause trouble? Why are you so thoughtless? Don't you know where you are? I put down my phone and looked up at her, explaining seriously he started it. The boy defended himself, saying he was just being friendly and trying to say hello, but I ignored him and insulted him. The people around him all chimed in to agree. I didn't even look down on her for being some girl from an antique shop, but she insulted me. Humph. Just as I thought, straight from the countryside. No class at all. Mrs. Hamilton felt her face burn. She had never been so humiliated. Especially seeing me acting like nothing was wrong, still looking down at my phone. A rush of anger went to her head. She snatched the phone out of my hand, threw it on the floor, and sputtered, "All you do is play on that phone. You completely ignore everything I say. Why did I have to have a daughter like you?" She clutched her chest, looking like she was about to faint from anger. Eva quickly rushed to support her. Others tried to smooth things over, saying that kids these days are just rebellious and so on. I stared down at the phone on the floor, silent. A fair, slender hand picked up the phone and held it out to me. Here. Luckily, it's not broken. He winked at me and smiled warmly. You play this app too? You seem really good. We should exchange notes sometime. The young man's appearance quieted the surroundings. Mrs. Hamilton was slightly stunned. Mr. Preston, what are you? The newcomer was the host of the party, the heir to the Preston Corporation, Julian Preston. Mrs. Hamilton, your daughter isn't just playing some ordinary game. This app was jointly developed by several top universities, including Silver Creek. Anyone who makes it onto the leaderboard is practically guaranteed a spot at a top college. Mrs. Hamilton's mind was struggling to catch up. Playing an app can get you into a top college? Julian's tone was regretful. Even though I had a top SAT score back in the day, I could only ever rank second on this app. He glanced at me as he said it. I blinked blankly. A buzz of conversation erupted. The boy from before stared in shock. Bro, are you saying she has an invitation code for that app? That's impossible. Everyone's attention was suddenly captured by the app Julian mentioned. The boy was a huge fan of the app, though he had yet to get an invitation code himself. He was an even bigger admirer of the person who perennially occupied the #1 spot on the leaderboard. M is so mysterious. I wonder if I'll ever get to meet them in my lifetime. I gave him a cool glance. Heh. On the way back, Eva was still buzzing about the app, her voice filled with excitement. Mr. Hamilton asked about it with interest, and she immediately recounted the events of the evening. At the end, she said with a look of longing, "That M is so amazing. I heard they've been #1 since the very beginning, but no one knows their real identity." Mr. Hamilton casually guessed, "If they're as incredible as you say, they're probably a university professor." Eva looked at him seriously and shook her head. "No, Dad. The rules of the app state that users can't be over 20 years old." The three of them chatted affectionately. I yawned and headed upstairs. As I passed Alex's room, I glanced in. The diligent CEO hadn't returned yet. Downstairs, none of the three mentioned him. How pitiful. We were pitifully in the same boat. It was supposed to be a family of 5, but 2 of us were always nameless. It used to be Charlotte. Now it was me. At that moment, I think I understood why Charlotte had so decisively returned to the Yun family after learning she wasn't a real Hamilton. Soon it was time to start school. I was placed in Eva's class. Eva was surprised to see me, as it was an honors class. Although I had promised Principal Chun I would come to school, I still slept when I wanted to and played on my phone when I wanted to. On the first day of school, Principal Chun came to the classroom to see me. After confirming that I was indeed a student at Silver Creek, he walked away satisfied, hands clasped behind his back. Before leaving, he specifically instructed the teacher not to disturb my sleep. My performance was reported home by Eva every day, and naturally, Mr. and Mrs. Hamilton grew more and more disappointed in me. Alex did, however, try to have a serious talk with me once. I casually pulled out a test paper, finished it on the spot, and handed it to him. He never brought up my studies again. Time passed like this, and then the school's early admission list was announced. Eva's name was not on it. Mine, however, was there in bold. When Eva came home and told them, the house instantly erupted. It must be a mistake. Did they mix up Cora's name with Eva's? Mrs. Hamilton said instinctively. Eva's eyes welled up, and she bit her lip, looking like she was fighting back tears. This broke Mrs. Hamilton's heart. Convinced the school had made an error, she declared she was going to find the principal and demand they give the spot back to Eva. Mr. Hamilton frowned but remained silent, though he also didn't believe I could have earned the spot. Only Alex spoke a word of reason. Cora's grades are excellent. It's not surprising that she would qualify for early admission. But his words stirred up a hornet's nest. Eva burst into tears. "I know I'm just adopted, and Cora is your real sister. That's why you're always on her side. This was never my home. Maybe I should have left a long time ago." With that, she ran to her room, wiping away tears. Mrs. Hamilton scolded Alex before rushing after her to comfort her. Mr. Hamilton also looked at his son with reproach. "Is that any way for a brother to act? Your sister is heartbroken, and instead of comforting her, you make her cry." Alex glanced at me, who had been silent through it all, then looked up at his father, his gaze heavy. "Dad, Cora is my sister too. And so is Charlotte. They are your daughters. You and Mom can see Eva's hurt, but why can't you see them?" Mr. Hamilton's expression faltered for a moment, before he erupted in anger. "Are you questioning me?" he glared. Alex met his gaze without backing down. In the end, it was the father who lost the standoff. His son was an adult, and he had inherited the family business from his grandfather. While he was the father and could pull rank occasionally, he didn't dare to truly go head-to-head with Alex. He ended up muttering a few platitudes and storming off, his retreating figure looking suspiciously like a hasty escape. Alex's gaze shifted to me. He hesitated, then reached out and ruffled my hair, smiling warmly. "Cora, congratulations. Honestly, I didn't care about the early admission spot. Principal Chin must have signed me up for it." Feeling the warmth on my head, I smiled back at Alex and for the first time, said the word. "Thanks, bro." Just as expected, Mr. and Mrs. Hamilton took Eva to see the principal. Worried, Alex skipped work and went with them to the school. With the early admission being questioned, the school took it very seriously, gathering the relevant teachers and students as witnesses. Principal Chen looked at Eva with a stern expression. "Are you suggesting the early admission results are fraudulent?" Eva hid behind Mrs. Hamilton, not daring to meet the principal's eyes, and mumbled with her head down, "I'm not saying the spot is fake, it's just Cora has never even been to school." How could she possibly qualify? Maybe the school made a mistake somewhere. I just don't want my sister to take someone else's spot. That wouldn't be fair to them. Her words caused a stir, and all sorts of strange looks were directed at me. Alex frowned slightly and moved to stand in front of me. Principal Chen looked deeply at Eva, then turned his gaze to Mr. and Mrs. Hamilton. Cora is your daughter. Others might question her, but how can you, as her parents, not believe in her? Mrs. Hamilton pursed her lips and said righteously, they are both my daughters. I'm not taking sides. I just want a fair outcome. A fair outcome, you say? Principal Chen chuckled softly and didn't say more. He laid out a file of documents for everyone to see. Who told you that you can't learn if you don't go to school? Some super geniuses aren't suited for traditional schooling. 1 year of self-study for them is worth more than 10 years in school for others. These are the certificates and awards Cora has won since she was a child. Most of them are from national-level competitions or higher, and she's won gold every time. That alone is enough to get her into any university in the country. These are the journal articles Cora has published since she was 12, and her 23 patents. And the most insignificant of these is this little app she created when she was 9. Principal Chen took out his phone and opened it. A familiar app appeared on the screen. Eva, who had already been listening in a daze, turned deathly pale, her body swaying as if she couldn't stand. She's not a regular genius. Her brain is one of humanity's most precious treasures. If she wanted to, she could get a degree from any university in the world right now. An early admission spot? She couldn't care less about it. I was the one who wanted to give it to her. The room was utterly silent. For a moment, no one spoke. Mr. and Mrs. Hamilton were the most shocked of all, staring at me blankly, having forgotten how to react. This daughter, the one they had thought the least of, turned out to be such a genius. They were at a loss, especially Mrs. Hamilton, who looked like she wanted to approach me but didn't dare. In the silence, I tilted my head and looked at Principal Chen. Old Man Chen. The principal gave me a playful scolding look, his face beaming. Mind your manners. Call me Grandpa. I obliged. Grandpa Chen. Does this mean I don't have to come to class anymore? The principal smiled benevolently. Yes, but you still have to show up for exams. I nodded casually and started walking out. The crowd parted like the Red Sea, clearing a path for me. At the school gate, Alex was standing by his car, watching me silently. I didn't walk over to him. Just then Mrs. Hamilton caught up. Cora, wait for Mom. You walk so fast, child. She came toward me with a chiding smile, trying to take my hand. Why didn't you tell your father and me? If you had told us sooner, we wouldn't have made this pointless trip to the school today. Are you hungry? Mom and Dad will take you out for a nice meal today, and then we'll go shopping. Mommy will buy you whatever you want. Mr. Hamilton stood nearby, his silence a show of support for his wife. Behind them, Eva stood with a ghostly white face, tears welling in her eyes, looking like she was about to collapse. I sidestepped Mrs. Hamilton's hand. The smile on her face froze slightly. No thanks. I'm going home. Mrs. Hamilton forced a smile. If you're tired and want to rest, that's fine. Let's get in the car then. She opened the door of the luxury car next to Alex. I didn't move. The smile on Mrs. Hamilton's face grew more and more strained, on the verge of cracking, when suddenly a cheerful shout rang out. Sis, I'm here to pick you up. A second-hand van pulled up nearby. Leo was grinning like a fool, waving at me vigorously through the window. In the driver's seat, Charlotte had one hand on the steering wheel and the other adjusting her glasses. She shot a cool glance over. When her eyes swept over Mr. and Mrs. Hamilton, they were completely devoid of emotion. I gave Alex a casual wave. Bro, come visit sometime. I'll treat you to some of Charlotte's pastries. With that, I stuffed my hands in my pockets and walked towards the van. Alex watched my retreating back, which showed no sign of looking back, and remembered our first conversation. He muttered to himself, so that's what you meant by just bringing yourself. Inside the van, Charlotte glanced at me in the rearview mirror. Back to the yins? I shook my head. Find a place with Wi-Fi. I have to take care of something. Leo leaned over curiously. What is it, sis? I pulled out my phone. The screen showed dozens of unread messages, all from the same person. Julian Preston. He was a friend I'd met on the app, and the only person who could ever threaten my top spot on the leaderboard. He had always wanted to know M's real identity, and I was also quite curious about this mysterious rival. Meeting up with someone, I said coolly. Charlotte glanced at me in the rearview mirror, a faint smile playing on her lips. That Julian Preston who's been chasing you? I nodded. It was time to meet this legendary genius. Half an hour later, we were at a coffee shop downtown. I had sent Julian the location, asking him to meet me here. Just as we sat down at a window seat, a familiar figure walked through the door. Tall, with a handsome face, it was Julian Preston, the guy from the party. He looked around, and his eyes finally landed on me, a flash of surprise in them. He asked tentatively. I nodded. Julian Preston? He was stunned for a few seconds, then burst out laughing. So it was you. No wonder you didn't react at all when you heard the name that day. After sitting down, he studied me with great interest. I never thought the legendary M would turn out to be the long-lost Hamilton heiress. You knew my identity all along? I asked. I only just confirmed it, Julian said, picking up his coffee. But thinking back now, it all makes sense. What makes sense? Why you always turn down my invitations, and why you were always so good at the antique appraisal questions, he smiled. A genius from a family of antique dealers. It fits perfectly. I looked at him calmly. So you asked to meet just to confirm my identity? Not just that. Julian's smile faded, and his expression turned serious. I want to invite you to join my team. What team? A project team dedicated to the digital preservation of ancient artifacts. His eyes shone with excitement. We're developing a brand new antique appraisal system, and we need a genius like you. I was silent for a moment. The proposal was genuinely interesting, much more so than lying at home playing on my phone. What are the terms? You can work from home, no need to come into the office. You get 30% of the project's profits, plus a monthly salary. Sounds good, I nodded. I'll consider it. Julian let out a visible sigh of relief. That's great. I'll send you the detailed information as soon as possible. Just then the coffee shop door opened again. Alex hurried in, his eyes scanning the crowd, and quickly found me. He strode over, his face a little grim. Cora, what are you doing here? Getting coffee, I answered simply. Alex's gaze fell on Julian, and his eyes immediately became wary. Mr. Preston, fancy meeting you here. Mr. Hamilton, Julian nodded politely. I was just discussing a potential collaboration with your sister. A collaboration? Alex frowned. Cora is still in school. She doesn't have time for any projects. Bro, I looked up at him. I can make my own decisions. Alex was taken aback, seemingly not expecting me to contradict him so directly. Cora, you're still young, some things. I'm 18, I cut him off. Legally, I'm an adult. Julian watched the sibling exchange with an amused glint in his eye. Finally, Alex sighed. Fine. But you have to discuss any decisions with me first. Okay, I nodded. At that moment, Charlotte pushed open the door and walked straight to our table. Cora, Leo's getting impatient in the car. We should go. Her arrival surprised all three of them. Julian was the first to react, standing up and extending his hand. Ms. 1, a pleasure to finally meet you. Charlotte shook his hand politely. The pleasure is all mine, Mr. Preston. Alex's expression was more complex, his gaze toward Charlotte filled with a hint of inquiry. Charlotte, what are you? I'm here to take Cora home, Charlotte said coolly. I trust you have no objections, Mr. Hamilton? Alex opened his mouth, but in the end said nothing. I stood up and said to Julian, email me the files. I'll seriously consider it. Of course, Julian nodded. I look forward to our collaboration. As we walked out of the coffee shop, Charlotte suddenly asked, what terms did he offer you? 30% of the project profits, plus a salary. Not enough, Charlotte said, pushing up her glasses. With your skills, you should be asking for at least 50%. I turned my head to look at her. You know a lot about this stuff? It's just business negotiation, she said dismissively. You're too easily satisfied. People will take advantage of you. Leo poked his head out of the car window. Sis, what are you guys talking about? Hurry up and get in, I'm starving. Back at the Yun's place, my adoptive parents were busy in the shop. Seeing us return, my mom wiped her hands and came out. Cora's back. Have you eaten? Not yet. Then hurry and wash your hands. I made sweet and sour pork ribs. Sitting at the familiar dining table, eating the familiar food, I suddenly felt a sense of peace. My dad put down his work and sat down with us. Cora, I heard you got an early admission spot at school? Yeah. That's amazing. My dad's face beamed with pride. That's our girl. My mom shot him a look. What do you mean, our girl? She's a Hamilton. In my heart, Cora will always be our girl, my dad said seriously. A warmth spread through my chest, and the corners of my mouth turned up unconsciously. This is what a family feels like. No need to prove anything, no need to act exceptionally brilliant. Just to be accepted and loved for who you are. Charlotte watched this scene quietly, a flicker of envy in her eyes. Charlotte is amazing too, I said suddenly. She's got the antique shop running so well, and even has an expansion plan. My parents immediately turned their attention to Charlotte, their faces full of appreciation. Charlotte really is a good kid. She's been a huge help since she came to live with us. Yeah, a lot better than this rascal Leo, my mom laughed. Leo protested indignantly. Mom, I work hard too, you know. You call that working hard? Charlotte pushed up her glasses. Yesterday, you priced a Ming Dynasty blue and white porcelain vase, as if it were from the Qing Dynasty. If I hadn't caught it in time, we would have lost a fortune. Leo immediately deflated. It was just a mistake. The family ate and chatted together, full of warmth and laughter. I suddenly realized that maybe this was the life I truly wanted. No need to prove how much of a genius I was, no need to perform to gain approval. Just being here, simply with the people who love me. My phone rang. It was the project proposal from Julian. I casually opened it and skimmed through. It was indeed a very promising project. Charlotte leaned over for a look, then took my phone and began to read it seriously. This project is good, but the risk allocation is unreasonable, she analyzed as she read. They've shifted most of the risk to the technical partner, which is you. So what should I do? Renegotiate the terms, Charlotte said, putting down the phone. You handle the tech, I'll handle the business negotiations. You want to be involved? Why not? She said, as if it were the most obvious thing in the world. Digital preservation of antiques is my area of expertise. I thought for a moment and nodded. Having a business genius like Charlotte helping out would certainly make things a lot easier. The next day, Julian contacted me. Cora, what have you decided? I'm in, but we need to renegotiate the terms of our partnership. There was a moment of silence on the other end of the line. All right. Let's schedule a time to meet and discuss it. Okay, but I'll be bringing a partner. A partner? Charlotte won. You should know her. Julian was clearly stunned for a moment. Ms. Wan is also participating in this project? Is that a problem? No, of course not. His voice sounded almost excited. Having Ms. Wan on board will greatly increase the project's chances of success. It seemed Charlotte's reputation in the industry was even bigger than I had thought. After hanging up, I turned to look at Charlotte, who was organizing some antiques. Julian agreed. 3 o'clock tomorrow afternoon at his company to discuss the details. Got it, Charlotte replied without looking up. I'll prepare a new proposal. You're very confident about this project? Digital preservation is the future. If this project succeeds, it will be worth at least $1 billion. She put down the porcelain vase she was holding and turned to face me. Cora, do you know what your technology means? I shook my head. It can allow antique lovers all over the world to view and study ancient artifacts in high definition online. This isn't just a commercial project. It's a revolution in cultural heritage. Charlotte's eyes sparkled with light, a passion for her work and a vision for the future. I suddenly understood why the Hamilton family had produced someone like Charlotte. She wasn't just smart, more importantly, she had her own ideals and ambitions. And me? Besides being exceptionally gifted, what did I have? Cora, Charlotte seemed to read my mind. Your talent is a gift. But how you choose to use that gift is up to you. I nodded, a decision solidifying in my heart. Perhaps it was time to get serious about my own life. The end.